Bill Henshaw here again, your friendly local constitutional coop from California. And a lot of good news here. And it's just been coming on this entire year, which I thought was going to be the year. And that said, I've got an issue here that's good across the board. And I just never saw it in the proper perspective. I'm a little embarrassed about that, but better late than never. And that's the foreign state. And that's what we're dealing with here. And it's mentioned directly in Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution, although I don't think the framers could imagine the foreign state we're dealing with here. Nevertheless, that's a huge, big issue. And the reason for that is that we can get into a federal circuit court, a judicial court. And it doesn't matter where you are, foreclosures, evictions, child procurement, syndicate, traffic court, you name it, because there are no courts there. You're going to learn, by getting my modestly priced materials. Send me an email, unincourt@gmail.com, constitutional defense document packets, that you've never been in a judicial court at any time. A lot of you probably instinctively get that, when the damn black robe bastards and the local dumbass team up and gang up on you, which is exactly the opposite of what should happen in an adversarial common law court. And this is where we're going to get them, because we can remove the case from the trial court, quote unquote, aka administrative tribunal. And if you haven't noticed lately, and a lot of these legal people should be well aware of it, the Supreme Court now in their fourth term of an all-out assault on the administrative state. 90 years later than it should be, I get that. But they're doing it now and will continue to do so, particularly if Trump wins the quote unquote election upcoming and we get two younger justices on there. So it's all good news, and we have a right to be there, just like you would think, and you would know if you'd been taught in school anything about, the Constitution, history, and laws of the United States. Don't feel bad. I wasn't either 60 odd years ago, but I learned, and I'm going to teach you. Send me an email, unincourt@gmail.com, about my constitutional defense document packets. And you're going to learn that the framers did a great job setting up this nation and republic. No, it wasn't a perfect government. No one's saying it was. Only the best one ever invented. We want it back. And we now have a Supreme Court that thinks the same way that I do, and the same way that most of you do. We're so far out in left field. I mean, you can believe it. And I didn't either at one time. In fact, I was ahead of the class in ignorance coming out of high school, as I did. And, what did I do? At the age of 19, I volunteered into the Marine Corps at the height of the Tet Offensive in the Vietnam War. Luckily, my mom got me out of it. She put a hex on the Marine and said, "They're not going to get me." And sure enough, they didn't. Story for another day. But I was ahead of the class in ignorance, and I got schooled right outside of Washington, D.C., and didn't learn any of the stuff that I'm going to teach you. But it's exciting, because if we get it removed from the state court, quote unquote state court, which it isn't, and we get it dismissed in the federal court, and this is a big deal, because now we're going to go in there and get around the bastard clerks of court who have no business doing anything but filing our documents. And you will learn they all commit multiple acts of treason by getting involved in the process with the paperwork, which they can't do unless they can somehow exercise the judicial power of the United States. Ongoing story. I'll keep you abreast of developments in the Supreme Court about this one. But that said, get the hell out of the way, file a document, get us a hearing on the record with the presiding judge about filing documents in the federal circuit court, not the federal district court. The building will look like that. But the Supreme Court knows, the framers of the Constitution knew, that there were two different courts there. And in the earlier era, by the way, I do think the federal district courts were judicial courts. They're not now, and they haven't been since at least HJR 192 of 1933, courtesy of Franklin D. Roosevelt, Inc. where they declared the bankruptcy of the United States. You'll learn all about that. And yet they treat us as the ones that are bankrupt. Talk about black, it's white, and this just us system. They're the ones that are broke, not us. You'll learn all about that too. Send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com, and we get these things going. And we get to the judge, and the judge either refuses to tell us why he's not going to file a document or denies filing them on the record. That gets us into the U.S. Supreme Court on the fast train. And we get a decision there, and they may not make it until the next term after the election. But as you'll learn, I'll be telling them for the moment, it's okay. If we get our documents there, you can take them and put them on the docket and put them on for a hearing. The next term may come back in October, November, more or less after the election. But you shut down everything in the lower courts while you're doing it. Tell them to stand down. And maybe perhaps release some people in custody, whether they happen to be in jail, quote unquote, or if they're in there because they're considered mentally defective. That's another big area that we're going to be dealing with here too. So they can do that and then go ahead and take the cases, and there may be more than a few of them. In one case, they're all going to be the same issue, so they can decide 6 or 8 or 10 cases or whatever by doing that, and they're going to have our backs. And I know that because if I have to say it myself, I may be the biggest expert on the Supreme Court that there is out there. I've been doing this in my 5th decade now, and I know a lot of what they do, especially behind the scenes and what's been going on in the last 4 terms of the court. And that's a daunting amount of information to have, plus the documents you're going to get from me, because we go in there and tell the trial court, you ain't got no states. You get an 83-page motion on that subject. The first 5 pages are citations to authorities before you ever get to the actual brief and what's said in there. 5 pages of authorities. And we go in there and we tell them that the 14th Amendment doesn't exist. And thank God for that. Everybody's in love with that 13th and 14th Amendment. 13th Amendment's the slavery amendment, despite the fact we're all slaves today. They don't want you to know that either. But that doesn't exist. The 14th doesn't exist. In fact, we only have 12 amendments. You'll learn that too. And that's good for all of us across the board. There's any people that think that civil rights is what the rat's ass. I got 2 words for you. Jalen Walker. And shot 48 times in the back by 8 law enforcement thugs, none of whom got indicted for even involuntary manslaughter when they committed first degree. And that brings me back to the foreign state issue. And what you're going to learn is if you owe your what I call your birthright citizenship to the 14th Amendment, you're a subordinate corporate dead entity. That's it. That's all they recognize today. So to answer the question about Jalen Walker, if he's already dead, what the hell is the problem? That's how the people in New York bankers see all this, and some of the people that work with them closely, don't give a rat's ass about anybody, and they never did. Forget about that old nonsense in that Reconstruction. I mean, and like Nikki Haley said inadvertently, the governor of South Carolina, about which more later, the Civil War wasn't about slavery. That's true. I don't know if she knows why it's true, but it is true, and you'll learn all about that from getting my paperwork and studying with me. Send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com. And when you get my documents, modestly priced, about 20 cents a page or thereabouts, you also get complimentary phone consultation, because I know there's going to be questions. And I try to set it forth pretty plainly in the papers, but I know I was as ignorant as anybody else back in the day, so I get it. But a lot of you instinctively know, and some of you have done some work and have set yourself up to really run away with this paper. It's going to be amazing, I think, what's going to happen before the year is over here. So I'm pleased about that. And I want to be able to help as many people as I can, get out from under this system once and for all. But you know damn well you're not in a judicial court. You don't have a neutral magistrate. There's no right to trial by jury. And think about that one, by the way. One of the arguments we make is there's no jurisdiction there. If the qualified jury pools are 14th Amendment dead citizens, how can they even be competent to rule on the facts, let alone the law? In a common law jury, they can do both. And that's what beats the hell out of these badgers. If we get the law in front of the jury and they're going to tell the government to take a hike, you'll learn all about that too. Send me an email, uwinnincourt@gmail.com. Doesn't matter what you're doing or how you're doing it. And special attention at this particular time to homeowners associations. Ain't absolutely no way. We're going to love dealing with them. And what we do is set an unopposed record, one way or another, in court or out of court. And then we go after the badgers and get a nice big payday because they can't have this come out. Because the way the system works, right or wrong, or good or bad, if we get one decision, especially in the U.S. Supreme Court, against homeowners associations, evictions, you name it, it's good for every case from Portland, Maine to Portland, Oregon. It puts them all out of business exactly as it should, and they may get convicted of treason. And luckily for these perps, at least some of them anyway, they won't be homeless like so many of their victims are of foreclosures and evictions, because they're going to be in close proximity to cell 2455 in San Quentin death row. That's what we have the power to do. I want to teach you all about it. Let me email uwinnincourt@gmail.com. In the meantime, subscribe, like the videos, tell your friends, get the word out. The quicker and faster we move, the sooner we get out from all this BS nonsense, especially with Joe Biden. Uh, and we can get a lot done and make all of our lives better. And that's my goal, is to do exactly that. So that said, send me an email, uwinnincourt@gmail.com. Look for more videos upcoming, and it's going to be not only more, but a lot better than I'm able to do on my computer. You're going to love the new videos you're going to see. Hopefully starting, I don't know, mid-May or maybe late May. I'll tell you more about that part later. But in that case, like I said, send me an email, uwinnincourt@gmail.com. We'll go from there. Thank you.